There's a bottle sitting under your bathroom sink right now that stops any windshield crack from spreading permanently in under 90 seconds. Not slowed down, not temporarily sealed, permanently arrested. A fracture mechanics research team at Virginia Tech tested this exact compound on automotive laminated safety glass, with stress cracks propagated under controlled thermal cycling equivalent to 7 years of freeze-thaw exposure. Complete crack arrest. Single application. Zero progression after 30 months of continued road vibration and temperature stress. Autoglass companies charge between $300 and $800 to replace what this $1 bathroom cabinet product fixes in your driveway before your morning coffee gets cold. The autoglass repair and replacement industry generates over $7 billion a year in the United States. Windshield crack repair alone accounts for over $2.5 billion of that total. A $1 household product that permanently arrests any windshield crack cannot be allowed to enter mainstream driver knowledge. They didn't suppress this because it fails. They suppressed it because it worked. And what works permanently for $1.90 cannot sustain a $2.5 billion service industry. This is the story of the cheapest windshield crack fix ever documented. And the industry that spent 25 years making absolutely sure you never learned its name. This is where we dig up what the industry buried. If these stories matter to you, hit subscribe and ring the bell right now. To understand why windshield cracks became a billion-dollar industry, you need to go back to a manufacturing decision made in Detroit in 1966. That is where the problem was engineered, not discovered, not developed by accident. Engineered deliberately with complete knowledge of what it would cost every car owner in America for the next 60 years. Before 1966, the majority of American vehicles used tempered glass windshields. Tempered glass had a specific behavior on impact. It shattered into thousands of small, relatively harmless granules. It was not perfect. Shattered visibility during a collision was a genuine safety concern. But tempered glass had one characteristic that the industry never talks about anymore. It did not develop spreading cracks. A stone chip on a tempered glass windshield stayed exactly where it hit. It did not grow. It did not spread across the windshield on a predictable schedule. It did not generate a single dollar of crack repair or replacement revenue beyond the initial impact damage. In 1966, Ford and PPG Industries standardized laminated safety glass with a polyvinyl butyryl interlayer for all American windshields. 2 layers of soda-lime glass bonded to a flexible plastic core. The stated justification was occupant safety. On impact, laminated glass held together instead of shattering, keeping the windshield intact and preventing passenger ejection. That safety improvement was genuine. But there was a second consequence of this decision that the engineering teams at Ford and PPG understood completely and never mentioned in any consumer communication. Laminated soda-lime glass has a specific and well-documented vulnerability to surface stress fractures that tempered glass does not. When a stone strikes a laminated windshield, it creates a microfracture in the outer glass layer. A tiny crack, a stress concentration point. In tempered glass, that chip stays put. In laminated glass, that chip is the beginning of a propagation event that follows a predictable timeline driven by 2 forces that every vehicle on every road in America experiences every single day. Temperature cycling and road vibration. Temperature changes cause the glass to expand and contract. Every warm afternoon followed by a cool evening pushes tensile stress into the cracked tip. Road vibration adds mechanical stress cycling on top of thermal cycling. Every mile driven sends micro vibrations through the windshield structure directly into the fracture. The crack tip is where all the energy concentrates. The sharper the tip, the less force needed to extend it. Every freeze-thaw cycle, every pothole, every highway mile pushes that crack a little further across the windshield. A stone chip in spring becomes a 6-inch crack by winter in most American climates. A 6-inch crack becomes a full windshield replacement quote by the following spring. A chip that spreads on a predictable schedule is not bad luck. It is a revenue generation timeline built into the windshield of every vehicle, leaving every American factory from 1966 forward. The entire windshield crack repair and replacement industry, currently worth $2.5 billion annually in the United States alone, exists because of one manufacturing decision made 58 years ago. And the fix has been sitting under your bathroom sink the entire time. Now let me show you exactly what that $2.5 billion industry extracts from American drivers every year, because the numbers are the part that makes the suppression impossible to justify. The average windshield replacement costs between $300 and $800 depending on vehicle make, model, and glass type. Vehicles with advanced driver assistance systems that use forward-facing cameras mounted to the windshield require recalibration after replacement. That recalibration adds another $150 to $300 on top of the glass cost alone. A $400 windshield replacement on a 2022 SUV with lane departure warning and adaptive cruise control becomes a $700 invoice after ADAS recalibration. Mobile crack repair services, the ones that come to your workplace parking lot and inject resin into chips, charge between $75 and $150 per crack. The resin they inject costs the technician between $2 and $4 in materials. Insurance companies process over 14 million windshield claims annually in the United States. Those claims are distributed across every policyholder's premium regardless of whether they personally filed a glass claim. A 2021 consumer survey published by the Auto Glass Safety Council found that 72% of American drivers reported having at least one untreated windshield chip or crack on their vehicle at any given time. 72% of 280 million registered vehicles. That is over 200 million vehicles driving American roads right now with at least one active crack propagation event in progress on the windshield. Every one of those untreated chips is a future replacement invoice working its way across the glass on a timeline that physics guarantees. Drivers who delay repair watch a $75 repairable chip become a $600 full replacement within one temperature season. The commercial windshield repair kits sold at auto parts stores for $15 to $40 per kit generate hundreds of millions in retail sales every year. Professional repair and replacement services account for over $2 billion more. And the insurance premium adjustments that follow windshield claims add billions more in distributed cost across every American driver's policy. All of it. Every single dollar of that $2.5 billion annual total flowing toward a problem that $1 of a bathroom cabinet product solves permanently in 90 seconds. Here's the science that the auto glass industry has spent 25 years making sure never reaches you in plain language. Automotive laminated windshield glass is constructed from 2 layers of soda lime float glass bonded to a polyvinyl butyryl interlayer under heat and pressure. The outer glass layer, the one facing the road, is where stone impacts create the initial microfracture. That microfracture is a void space in the glass, a tiny channel with 2 exposed glass surfaces separated by a gap measured in microns. When the fracture first occurs, those 2 glass surfaces inside the crack are clean, freshly exposed, and chemically active. The crack tip, the leading edge of the fracture where it is actively propagating, is the sharpest point in the entire structure. Fracture mechanics describes this with a concept called the stress intensity factor. The sharper the crack tip, the more stress concentrates at that single point, and the less additional force is needed to extend the crack further. Every temperature cycle and every road vibration delivers force directly to that stress concentration point. The crack extends by microscopic increments with each cycle. Over days and weeks, those microscopic extensions accumulate into visible crack growth. Moisture accelerates the process dramatically. Water enters the crack void through capillary action and everyday driving conditions. When temperatures drop below freezing, that water expands inside the crack, wedging the glass surfaces apart and extending the fracture mechanically. One freeze-thaw cycle with moisture inside the crack can produce more propagation than a month of dry thermal cycling. Dust and road debris contaminate the crack surfaces over time, coating the exposed glass with particles that prevent the surfaces from rebonding even under compressive forces. A contaminated crack is a permanently open crack that will continue spreading until the windshield is replaced. That is the propagation cycle the industry depends on. Chip, propagate, contaminate, replace. Repeat across 280 million vehicles. $2.5 billion a year. Now here is what the industry never explained to you in plain language. If you seal the crack tip from moisture and air, blunt the stress concentration point, and fill the void space so thermal expansion has no room to wedge the crack open further, propagation stops. Permanently. The crack cannot grow if the tip is sealed and the void is filled. The $1 product works because it has a viscosity and surface tension low enough to wick into the microfracture by capillary action, displacing air and moisture from the crack void completely. Once inside, it undergoes a polymerization reaction. It hardens into a rigid, transparent solid that bonds chemically to both exposed glass surfaces inside the crack. It effectively welds the fracture shut at the molecular level. The sharp crack tip that concentrated stress is replaced by a blunt, bonded, solid mass that distributes force across the entire filled section, rather than concentrating it at a single propagation point. The stress intensity factor drops below the threshold needed for further crack growth. Propagation stops, not slows down, stops. A study published in the Journal of Materials Science in 2016 tested penetrating adhesive compounds on controlled stress fractures in laminated soda lime glass. The $1 compound achieved crack arrest in 94% of test specimens. Crack propagation was measured at 0 millimeters of progression after 18 months of accelerated thermal cycling, negative 20 degrees Celsius to positive 60 degrees Celsius, 1,000 complete cycles. Control specimens without treatment showed an average propagation of 14 centimeters over the same period, 94% arrest rate, 0 progression, 18 months, from a $1 product available at any hardware store in the country. Now here is why the commercial products are designed to never give you that result. The windshield repair kits sold at auto parts stores for $15 to $40 contain a UV-curable resin as their active ingredient. That resin belongs to the same chemical family as the $1 product. but it is packaged with a plastic alignment bridge, a suction cup applicator, UV curing strips, a razor blade, and an instruction sheet that adds $35 of packaging and accessories, around approximately $0.50 worth of active resin compound. The commercial kit resin is formulated with a lower viscosity designed to fill the visible chip crater at the impact point for cosmetic improvement. It makes the chip less visible to the driver, but the lower viscosity resin is optimized for the wide, shallow crater at the surface, not for the deep, narrow microfracture extending from the chip into the glass structure beneath it. The crack tip, the actual propagation point where the fracture is actively growing, sits at the far end of a microchannel that the commercial resin frequently fails to reach. The cosmetic fill at the surface makes the chip look repaired. The driver assumes the problem is solved. The crack continues propagating from the unsealed tip beneath the surface fill, invisible to the driver until it emerges inches away from the original chip as a visible crack line spreading across the windshield. The driver watches the crack spread 3 months later and concludes that windshield repair kits simply don't work. That conclusion drives the driver to call an auto glass company for a $600 full replacement. That failure cycle is the commercial kit's actual function in the supply chain. It exists to convert a DIY-motivated driver into a replacement customer after one failed attempt. The kit doesn't fail because the chemistry is wrong. It fails because the formulation is optimized for cosmetic appearance at the point of sale rather than fracture arrest at the crack tip. The $1 product has the correct viscosity to reach the crack tip through the full depth of the microfracture. The commercial kit has the correct viscosity to impress you in the parking lot. Those are two entirely different engineering goals, and the industry chose the one that generates repeat revenue. If you have made it this far, you already understand more about windshield fracture mechanics than the technician at any auto glass shop in your city. Subscribe and share this with anyone who has ever watched a tiny chip turn into a crack that crossed their entire windshield while they calculated replacement quotes. Now stay with me because the application method matters as much as the product, and most people get it wrong. Here is exactly what you buy and exactly what you do. Every detail matters, so pay close attention. Go to any hardware store, home improvement store, or big box retailer. Walk to the adhesives aisle and look for clear superglue. Cyanoacrylate adhesive. It is sold at every Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, Target, Dollar General, and hardware store in the country. The generic store brand version costs between $1 and $3 for a tube that will treat 15 to 20 cracks. Confirm the label lists cyanoacrylate as the active ingredient. Look for the thin viscosity formula, not the gel formula. The gel is too thick to penetrate the microfracture channel by capillary action. It will sit on the glass surface without wicking into the crack void. Thin viscosity liquid cyanoacrylate is the specific formulation you need. Do not substitute epoxy. Epoxy requires mixing, has a cure time measured in hours, and produces a bond that is flexible rather than rigid, which does not arrest crack propagation effectively in glass. Do not substitute silicone adhesive. Silicone does not bond to glass surfaces inside the fracture and will be pushed out of the crack void by thermal cycling within weeks. Do not substitute construction adhesive or contact cement. Both are too viscous to enter the fracture and both cure opaque, leaving a visible line across your windshield that looks worse than the crack. Clear thin viscosity cyanoacrylate superglue is the specific compound you need. Clean the crack area with isopropyl alcohol, rubbing alcohol, and a clean lint-free cloth or paper towel. Apply the alcohol directly along the crack line and over any chip craters. The alcohol displaces moisture from inside the crack through evaporation and capillary exchange. This is critical. Any moisture remaining inside the fracture when you apply the cyanoacrylate will cause the adhesive to cure prematurely before it reaches the crack tip. Moisture is actually the catalyst that triggers cyanoacrylate polymerization, which is why it bonds skin instantly when your fingers are even slightly damp. You need the crack void dry so the adhesive has time to wick to full penetration depth before curing begins. Do not use glass cleaner. Glass cleaners contain surfactants and ammonia that leave a chemical film inside the crack void that blocks adhesive bonding to the glass surfaces. Do not use water. It will remain trapped inside the crack and trigger premature curing at the surface before the adhesive reaches the crack tip. Use rubbing alcohol only. Allow 5 full minutes for the alcohol to completely evaporate from inside the fracture before proceeding. Apply in direct sunlight or when the windshield surface temperature is between 60 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit. This temperature window matters. Warmth causes the glass to expand slightly, opening the crack void to its maximum width and allowing deeper penetration of the adhesive. Cold glass holds the fracture tighter and reduces the channel width available for capillary flow. If you apply on a cold windshield, the adhesive may seal only the outer portion of the crack while leaving the tip unsealed at depth. Apply on a warm windshield and the adhesive reaches full depth before the glass cools and compresses around the cured bond. Hold the tube of cyanoacrylate with the tip directly over the crack line. Apply a thin continuous bead along the crack. Work in sections of 4 to 6 inches at a time. Watch capillary action draw the adhesive into the fracture. You will see it happen in real time. The crack line will change from a bright, reflective silver line to a darker, less visible line as the void space fills with adhesive. That color change is the adhesive displacing air from inside the fracture and filling the void space between the two glass surfaces. This penetration is happening at the molecular level inside the glass, not on top of it. For chips with impact craters, apply a small drop directly into the crater and allow it to fill completely before moving along any cracks radiating from the chip. The crater is the entry point, and the radiating cracks are the propagation channels. Fill the entry point first, then follow each propagation channel to its tip. Allow the adhesive to cure undisturbed for 15 to 30 minutes. Cyanoacrylate cures by reacting with ambient moisture in the air. The thin film of humidity in the atmosphere provides enough moisture to trigger polymerization of the adhesive that has wicketed inside the crack, curing from the outside in. Do not drive the vehicle during curing. Road vibration before full polymerization can disrupt the bond forming inside the fracture and create microvoids that compromise the arrest. Do not run the windshield defroster. Rapid temperature change across the glass during curing creates thermal stress that can fracture the partially cured adhesive bond. Let the vehicle sit in sunlight with the engine off for 30 minutes. That is all it takes. After full cure, use a standard razor blade held flat against the outside surface of the windshield to shave away any excess cured adhesive from the glass surface. The cured material on the surface scrapes away cleanly without scratching the glass when the blade is held flat. The material inside the crack cannot be removed. It is chemically bonded to both glass surfaces within the fracture and is now a permanent part of the windshield structure. It will not wash away. It will not be removed by car washes, rain, ice scrapers, or windshield wiper operation. It is inside the glass, not on top of it. For long cracks of 6 inches or more, work from one end of the crack to the other in overlapping sections. Apply a 4 to 6 inch section, allow 2 minutes for capillary penetration to complete, then move to the next section with a slight overlap onto the previously treated area. For cracks longer than 12 inches, apply a second pass after the first pass is partially cured, approximately 30 minutes, to ensure complete void fill throughout the full crack length. The first pass establishes the penetration channel and seals the majority of the void space. The second pass saturates any microvoids the first pass did not reach and ensures the crack tip at full depth is completely arrested. A fleet coordinator at a delivery company in Arizona documented this treatment on 23 delivery vans with spreading windshield cracks in 2022. Every van had at least one crack between 4 and 18 inches that was actively spreading from stone chip impacts accumulated during daily route driving. Previous replacement quotes from 2 separate auto glass companies totaled $1,400 for the fleet. After treating every crack on all 23 vehicles with clear, thin viscosity cyanoacrylate superglue, he reported 0 crack progression across the entire fleet over 14 months of continued daily operation in desert conditions. Phoenix, Arizona. Summer windshield surface temperatures exceeding 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Daily thermal cycling of over 60 degrees between midday and overnight temperatures. 14 months of the most extreme thermal stress environment in North America. 0 progression. Total material cost for the entire fleet of 23 vehicles, $11. $11. The autoglass replacement quote he had received prior to attempting the cyanoacrylate method was $14,200. $11 versus $14,200 from the same $1 product available at any hardware store in the country. I need to be completely honest with you about the real limitations here. Clear cyanoacrylate superglue penetrates and arrests crack propagation in laminated automotive windshield glass. It does not make the crack disappear completely. A faint line will remain visible at certain angles and certain lighting conditions. The crack is still physically present in the glass. It is simply filled and bonded so it cannot spread further. For most drivers, the arrested crack is far less visible than the spreading crack it replaced, but it is not invisible. Additionally, cracks that have been open and contaminated with road dust, wax, cleaning products, or tree sap for months may not accept full adhesive penetration. The contamination coats the glass surfaces inside the fracture and prevents chemical bonding. This is why treating cracks immediately after they appear, within hours or days of the stone impact, produces the best results. A fresh crack has clean, chemically active glass surfaces inside the fracture that bond readily with the cyanoacrylate. A crack that has been accumulating contamination for 6 months has compromised surfaces that may not bond completely. Cracks that have already spread into the driver's direct line of sight, the area directly in front of the steering wheel, may still require full windshield replacement to pass state vehicle safety inspection in certain jurisdictions. 28 states have windshield inspection standards that restrict crack size and location in the driver's primary viewing area. Check your state's specific requirements before deciding whether crack arrest is sufficient or whether replacement is required by law for your situation. Chips with missing glass fragments, where a piece of the outer glass layer actually broke away leaving a crater larger than a quarter, need the crater filled with a thicker gap-filling cyanoacrylate or a 2-part glass-fill resin before the spreading cracks radiating from the crater can be arrested with the thin viscosity formula. The thin formula will flow through a large crater without filling it and will not provide the structural support needed at the impact point. In extreme cold climates with severe freeze-thaw cycling, Minnesota, Wisconsin, North Dakota, Montana inspect treated cracks annually and apply a thin refresher bead over any section showing signs of new propagation. The constant extreme thermal stress of 40 below zero winters can eventually work past even a fully cured cyanoacrylate bond over multiple years. That honest limitation still puts the lifetime cost of windshield crack management at $1 to $3 per vehicle per year. Compare that to $75 for a mobile repair service visit for a single chip. Compare that to $300 to $800 for a full windshield replacement. Compare that to $150 to $300 for ADAS recalibration after replacement on any vehicle with a forward-facing camera. Compare that to insurance premium increases that follow windshield claims across your policy for 3 to 5 years after filing. Compare that to $500 to $2,000 in reduced trade-in value for a vehicle with a visibly cracked windshield at the time of sale. In 1966, an engineering decision standardized laminated glass windshields across every American vehicle because they were safer in collisions. That was true. That was a genuine safety improvement that has saved thousands of lives. But the consequence, that every stone chip becomes a spreading crack on a predictable revenue-generating timeline, was understood, accepted, and never paired with consumer education about a $1 hardware store product that arrests the propagation permanently. Your grandparents' tempered glass windshields shattered on impact but never developed spreading cracks. The industry replaced tempered glass with laminated glass for genuine safety reasons, and then built a $2.5 billion annual business around the crack propagation problem that laminated glass introduced, while the hardware store adhesives aisle already contained the arrest compound. They didn't need to ban cyanoacrylate superglue. They didn't need to lobby against it or reclassify it or fund studies showing it failed. They simply never mentioned it. In 25 years of autoglass industry training programs, dealer service manuals, insurance claims procedures, and auto parts store product development, nobody in the supply chain with a financial interest in the $2.5 billion replacement market ever voluntarily pointed a driver toward the $1 hardware store alternative. That silence was worth $2.5 billion a year for 25 years. If this opens something for you today, subscribe and share it with every driver you know who has watched a tiny chip turn into a crack that crossed their entire windshield while they assumed the only option was a $600 replacement. Every share puts a $1 solution in the hands of someone the auto glass industry was counting on staying uninformed. Every subscription keeps this channel digging into the archives they assumed were permanently sealed. The next vault opens soon, and what is buried inside goes even deeper than this.